Welcome to Fired Up. I am your host, Tammy Shike. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope that the topics we discuss can make you fired up. Today we'll be speaking with Bobby. Bobby, tell us a little about yourself.
I'm a mother of 2 adopted children and a grandmother of 2. And I work at Pure Health Acupuncture with Dr. Chris to help those who come in need because, a lot of times disease and pain start in the emotion as well. So I feel a ministry there that I connect with people and love on them. And then a little bit about how I look at life is I'm very optimistic. I see the glass half full of water, not half empty. People tell me I'm kind of gullible and naive, but, kind of a little kid, I guess. But that's the basis of who I am on that.
Well, lovely, and thank you for sharing all of that. So
You're
tell me
welcome.
what you'd like to speak about today.
I recently, in February, had to go to court with someone else that to get a restraining order against my son, Ben. And I didn't initiate the restraining order. The other person did, but I was included in it. My son suffers with a lot of mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar, depression. And when he gets depressed, he experiences demonic behavior. And so instead of taking medication, he would drink alcohol. And he would become very toxic, was in the hospital several times with alcohol poisoning. He's 36 years old, and he was killing himself, basically. He'd come out of rehab, and the next day he'd start drinking and then go back in rehab. So during those times of darkness, he would threaten to kill me. He would threaten to kill me and then kill himself and go up to heaven and kill God. And send God to hell so God could experience what he was experiencing. So he's had a lot of issues, and I never felt really safe with him. So I would go with Chris and together, to check on him. I know in his own way he loves me, but he's got a lot of demons, and I wasn't getting any better. So Chris said, why don't we get a restraining order? Because it's kind of starting to get physical.
Sure.
And so I was like, oh, as a mother's heart,
Sure.
the one thing you don't want to have to do is go to court and testify against your own child.
Sure.
And so Chris said, well, he would take it because Ben had threatened to kill Chris, and he called the cops on Chris all the time because when he wanted to kill himself or who knows, others maybe, Chris took his guns and stuff.
Sure.
And so he's always calling the cops that we stole his guns and the like. So, anyway, I was praying all the time, God, please don't make me do this. Please let Chris's testimony be enough to get the restraining order. And it was like, please, God, please. I was begging God, and please, God, please, not that, anything but that. And if you know God intimately, he usually makes you go through the hard, to grow and learn. And so we went to court, and it was just Chris and I, and then the judge and the, court reporter. And Chris was, gave his, text replies and pictures and
information.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely, that we had included in great detail.
Sure.
To the judge, and the judge, I don't think read it. He was not the judge that's normally there, and so we didn't think we had to bring everything with us.
Sure.
That we put. So the judge says, "Is this all you got?" to Chris. And Chris is like, well, I put it all in the report, even the deputies' names and,
Sure.
Just all of that. And so the judge said, "Who is that sitting behind you?" And he said, "That's Ben's mom." And he said, "Well, would she testify?" And it's in fact, I'm like shaking,
Sure.
you know, that cry, that half talk cry.
Sure.
And I looked at Chris, and he raised his hands like, "You don't have to," because
Sure.
he knew. And I knew if I didn't, it wasn't going to happen. There would not be peace. There would only be torment. So grudgingly, I shook my head. "Yeah, I will testify." And they didn't have Ben there personally, but he was on speaker because he was in yet another 30-day rehab. So the judge asked me questions like, "Have you ever heard Ben threaten to kill Chris?" And I said, "I heard him scream it, yes." And what situations? And, you know, all the details. And I told him that he, you know, had two psychosis and has been in, you know, like regional, you know, for 17 days and,
Sure.
you know, other places, and that he would see demons. And the very first time I lived with Ben, the time he had psychosis, he came home. He had a cross from Israel my mother brought me that's about this big, clutched to his breast, and he said, "Mom, the demons want you dead," and just screamed, and he was covered up. And I'm like, oh, you know, I tried not to be scared.
Sure.
And I said, "Well, of course they do. I love God." You know, I was trying to.
Sure.
And he goes, "No, you don't understand. They're faceless demons.
Sure.
And one of them stole your face."
Aw.
Okay, so now I have a demon walking around with my face and a kid that's raising a knife to chase it, to kill it.
Sure.
And I am not safe.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about, so let's stop there and talk about, like, let's concentrate on your feelings at that
Right,
point.
right.
So less of, like, we understand, we can't imagine the
right,
situation
right,
because we weren't
right,
there.
right, right.
And we can't imagine the
Right.
situation for you because you were there.
Right.
But talk about in those moments, how you were feeling. This is your son, and I'm sure, as you said, going to court to talk about
Right,
your
and I
son
had
must have
to
been hard.
share it with the judge.
Sure.
That, yeah.
So talk about the hard feelings that you've had with these, because I
Right.
mean, your son is talking about things that would be exactly the opposite of how you feel and
Right.
your relationship with God and the
Right.
things that are important to you. So let's talk a little bit about that and about those emotions that you've had to deal with.
When I was living with him, it was just him and I. And when I'm an exerciser, so when I was on the treadmill early in the morning, he would get up early and he would sit right across from me and just be so hateful against God because God made him that way. So and I got scared, but I didn't show it. I thought I have to remain calm
Sure.
and not be scared, you know. And then he would threaten to kill himself all the time.
Well, but talk about, like, so in that moment, you talked about being scared and
Mhm.
not wanting to show it. That makes
Yeah,
sense to
yeah.
me. But, like, think about the emotions. Think about what was going on in your head in addition to trying to make sure you were staying safe. Talk about, like, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, "Oh my goodness, this is my son, and he's saying these things that, in essence, don't make fun." Like,
Right,
I don't want to
doesn't
put
make
words into your
sense.
mouth, but talk about, like, what those feelings were in that moment for you.
I felt his darkness,
Okay.
and I felt that um I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
And so I didn't know what could be done.
Sure.
An adult child.
Sure.
And I wanted to run
Sure.
because my husband at the time was not living in the house and I was all alone. So I was scared at night. So I would like listen. I would lock my door, my bedroom door, you know, and I would hear footsteps in and out all night.
Sure.
And I didn't know if he'd come in my door
Sure.
and, you know, do something to me.
So great fear at that point.
Very, very great
So
fear.
great
I
fear.
slept with one eye open.
I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
So great fear. So taking that fear
Yeah.
of this person that you have unconditional love for, because even in those moments,
Right.
I'm sure you would say that, right?
Right. And I testified. I said, "He's my son. I will always love him."
Absolutely.
Because you know, he's not always like that.
Sure. Absolutely.
But the doctors told me when they have a psychosis, there's a high incidence of them killing their mothers. So it's like they're taken over.
Sure.
And he resented my love for God, because how could a God like that make him like he was? And he had issues that he wanted to be a girl and he was a guy. And I don't know if he thought that'd make life better for him. He was never feminine to me. I didn't
Sure.
see it. So I tried to like support him when he wasn't in those
Sure.
like darkness. And I felt like I wasn't safe. I wasn't respected.
Sure.
I wasn't valued.
I hear all of that.
Yeah.
What about like kind of on mom guilt on steroids times
Yes.
a million? So, at any point in all of that, were you beating yourself up?
Absolutely, because during the many times he's threatened to kill himself. I mean, anytime he spoke to me, I'm going to kill myself today. I'm going to kill myself today. And I'm going to kill myself today.
Sure. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that mom guilt.
Yeah.
So from what you've explained to me, these are actual diagnosed mental breaks that he's
Yes.
having.
Yes.
He's seen
Right.
doctors, they have
Right.
they have diagnosed him.
Yes.
So can we agree that it's not like and I mean this with all respect,
Sure.
but it's not like you took him out in the cold without a jacket and this was the result of it,
Right,
right?
right.
So
I've raised him in the church.
right.
I raised him. Um, um, we were well to do, so he had nice things,
Sure.
his own room.
Sure.
I raised him, um, with love and
Sure.
um, as much as I could.
So you did all of
Yeah,
those
I
things, and
did.
all of that would be textbook mom to mom,
Yes,
right?
yes,
We
yes.
would look at those things and we
Right.
would say,
I was a
did
stay-at-home mom,
there
so
you go.
yeah,
So there was
yeah,
attention, there were
right,
all of those things. So can we look at this logically and say that the mental and physical issues that he
right,
came with because
right,
whether that was hardwired when
right.
he was born,
Right, because
um,
I got him at age 18 months.
so
Yeah.
so there could be hereditary factors there that
Absolutely.
you had nothing to do with
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and could not have known. At 18
Absolutely.
months, you look at
You
this sweet little baby and you
no, no,
say,
they don't come out. His autism or Asperger's came out. They just discovered it when Ben was 14. So I took him to Riley's Children's Hospital, and the key two doctors wrote the first book on Asperger's was his doctor.
wow.
So he had the best,
So you
Yeah,
got him all of the help.
I
So what I'm
did.
trying to get you to see is with that guilt that is very easy to come upon us,
Right.
it doesn't sound like there was a stone left unturned.
No, no, I believed I did what's best, but in my marriage I was a disciplinarian. His dad was more of the give him what he wants, sort of relationship. So I felt always like I had to be disciplining.
Sure.
And with that kind of issues, you don't know what's manipulative and
Absolutely.
what's sickness or, yeah,
100%. But the truth is, and obviously he came with a different set of of facts to
right,
work with
right,
than general
right,
population. But a in every dynamic or in most dynamics, there would be a disciplinary,
right,
figure and there would be a lesser
right,
in
right.
that dynamic, right?
Exactly.
So, I if you won't give me the candy, I'm gonna ask dad, right?
Exactly, and that's exactly how it went, and Dad
So
gave him the candy.
a
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so that's
yeah,
like I said, what it sounds like to me is everything about this
yeah.
was I don't think whether you gave him candy, and I know
Yeah,
that's
I
a
know.
euphemism, but
Yeah.
whether you gave him the candy or you didn't give him the candy didn't contribute to the place that the mental
No,
issues, the mental
no,
health issues that he's had
correct,
to deal with.
correct.
So my thought for you is and everything you've said and shared with me today is our deep things that it feels like you're carrying deeply. Is that a fact?
I do. When he, threatened to kill himself over and over and over, I felt emotionally abused.
Sure.
And so one day I broke and I said, well, then do it.
Right.
When you're going to do it, where are you going to
Sure.
do it? Tell me. And I felt at that point that I went too far.
Well, but let's state that he's still with us, right?
Yes, he is.
He did not harm
No, he
himself.
did not.
So so where you were in that moment was kind of a what I'm hearing is that you were in a moment of just I don't know where to go,
Correct,
right?
correct.
And it is not up to me to decide whether it was a right or a
Right,
wrong
right.
decision, but let's look at the facts. He did not harm himself,
Correct.
and it could have been at that point a proverbial slap in the face. I'm not saying you slapped him, but it could have been that
I
moment where you said something that was completely out of character for you. Did it stop him in his
it
tracks a bit?
stopped that continual 50 times every day for months and maybe a year of him saying it, because I said, okay, what's your plan then? I didn't say it hateful. I
Sure,
was
sure,
like,
sure.
because I said, I don't want to come home. And I
Mm.
had a friend that their child blew their head off inside their home and the splattered everywhere. I said, so what is your plan? So I know where you are, so I can come and get your body. And when I was more realistic like that, then it stopped. So I didn't know if he was manipulating me to, I don't know. I don't
Well,
know
and I don't
what
know
that
that
is.
anybody
Yeah.
does know. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm not a trained medical
Right.
professional,
Right.
but I don't know that. So in human behavior,
Uh-huh.
there are certain things that we can look at and we can say, well, from A and
Yeah.
may go to B and it
Right.
may go to C and
Right.
that. But when you're dealing with some mental health
Right.
issues, the hard part in dealing with them is you don't know where B is going to
No,
be, and it
no.
may be Q, and then it
Right.
may bounce to
Right.
P. Like
Right.
there isn't a train
Right.
that you can ride
Right.
sequentially, and
Correct.
so what I'm the point of this is that if you can look at this as he came hardwired with the issues that he came
Absolutely.
with,
Absolutely.
you didn't have biology, and that doesn't mean that you can't have an adopted child that you love every bit as much as something
Yes.
that came from your
Correct.
flesh. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying, but that the issues came with him.
Yes.
And you did everything that I
I
can
knew.
imagine that
Yeah.
you could have ever done for him. And so what I hear is this guilt that you are carrying from something you said, from whether you did
Right.
everything you were supposed to do. I don't know that you could have done more. Like
Yeah.
I guess what I would invite you to is can you look at this logically and tell me, well, you just said
Right.
the doctors that he had are the
Yeah.
best in his field. So could you have done better than that?
I would have hoped I wouldn't have said, so kill yourself,
Well, okay,
because that was rather, yeah,
again,
harsh,
again,
I
it's
just
not
wanted it to stop.
understood. And like I said, I'm not suggesting that
Right.
that would be the best way to go, but
Right.
I'm also suggesting that at this point, what you're left with is the rest of your life.
Correct. Correct.
And in looking at the rest of your life,
Right. Well,
shoot, Bobby, I wonder if we pulled the planet,
yeah,
if we wouldn't, I mean, we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right?
exactly.
So I can't, it's not in my position to judge whether that was the right thing to do or the wrong
Right.
thing to
Right.
do. What I'm dealing with you at this point is you're feeling so much guilt from
Hmm.
that. And that is still what is so heavy on you. So,
Exactly.
what I'm saying to you is, can we look at this? Can we reframe this? And can we say, as I could about so many places in my life, I can look back because 2020, it's 2020 when you
Right.
look
Right.
back, right?
Right.
I could give you my list.
Uh-huh.
I could tell you all the things that I
Right.
could have
The
done better.
mistakes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like absolutely. However, we're not able to do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? And so
Right.
when God gave us the free will, the Adam and Eve, the apple, all of the
Exactly.
serpent, all of that, then we're going to make
Right.
mistakes.
Right. Right.
He had that figured out.
Right.
And so I'm trying to suggest to you that if you can look at the situation and learn from it and say to yourself, I believe, can you look at me and say that you believe that you've done everything you can do for him?
I do, and that is coming back to the court, because when I testified, because the judge asked me all that,
Sure.
and I answered all of it, what it was like and what was happening.
Sure.
And then the judge ruled in our favor,
Sure.
and Ben denied everything. He
Sure.
said, no, none of it's true. And so then I walked away and I
Sure.
had to go to work.
Sure.
And then I was half crying, working, thinking I had testified against my own kid in court. And then the caseworker, his caseworker, told me that she believed, had I not cut the ties, that he would be dead by now.
Okay.
So that
So that
helped.
was your moment.
That was my moment that I could feel was a good thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do now is leave you with some homework.
Yeah.
So thoughts creep in. It
Yes,
happens
always,
for all of us,
always.
everybody. If you're breathing, you have you have things that creep
Right.
in. And so when those thoughts creep in at you, what I'm going to for homework, what I'm going to ask that you do is hear the words from the social worker, because the
Yes.
social worker's words are pretty poignant,
Yeah.
because she's looking for everybody's best interest, right? Like she's in that position because she's looking at your best interest. She's looking at his best interest. So I think those are the words that you need to really focus on. And then to go one step farther than that, I think that if you will let yourself, instead of taking the inventory of the things that didn't go well,
Yeah.
I would like for you to have an inventory of the things that you did do amazingly. So you don't get an expert in your field by picking up the phone and calling one day and saying, "Hey, I'm bringing him in."
Right.
It took I know that there had to be a whole lot of steps that went before that.
Years,
So
yeah.
I would love for you to be able to start making a mental inventory of all the positive things that you did, whether it's stay-at-home mom, whether it is getting the best doctors, whether it is teaching him about God, like whatever that works for you. I want you to concentrate on those things and start moving forward, because this is, better days, right? And beauty for the ashes. And so let's concentrate, if you would please, on moving forward in the beauty and thinking about that the ashes have gotten you here. You're beautiful. You're in a wonderful relationship. You have a wonderful business. You have so many wonderful things ahead of you. If you can start concentrating there and focus on all the good that is in front of you, I think it becomes, you take charge of that life and it becomes a different life.
Right.
Is that something you feel like you could do?
I think it stems back, yes, and I will do it, is that I was born in 1953. The mother always stayed home, took care of the kids. The kids were her life.
Sure.
So now that I'm 72 and I'm just now having a life.
Sure.
And the caseworker told me, you need to cut the ties. It's time.
Sure.
Cut the ties. I will take care of Ben. Give me all of his stuff, and then I'll go forward with it.
Well, that's what I want you to do. I want you to take this part of your life. I want you to know from an outside source that has no equity in anybody, right? Like that's my job in this position, is just to look at it from a logical standpoint. You did all of the things and now it's time for you to take charge of this life and move forward. And using those tools, I think each day becomes a little bit easier for you.
And it's the thought of, it's wrong to be about you. We talk,
sure.
Oh, that's selfish.
But this isn't, because then you're going to be better for everybody. That's in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Bobby, thank you so much for being here with us today. Some of these themes run through all of us, whether it is guilt, whether it is making sure that we've done everything we can in our life, whether it is self-doubt. These are the things that plague us and make us doubt ourselves. And so this is a lesson in how can I concentrate on the positive and make this the best life that I can make and use this life to be fired up. Thank you for being here today.